They give an effect to his smile. He'll just like make a finger gun and smile, and Mayu will just be like, oh.
That's a very accurate fangirl voice. You've done that before.
Of course, I've done it before, man. Come on,
Jesus.
give me some credit. Welcome to Check Your Privilege. This is a new idea that we're coming up with, and I'm your host Karan. And what I've done in life is watched a bunch of anime and obsessed over it for a bunch. And I have friends who are the exact opposite. For example, my co-host Samsha. Uh, he, on the other hand, seems to claim that he despises anime, and apparently, it's my job here to change his opinion on that. So, what I've done is I've given him a show that he has to watch, and he has watched it, which is frankly a miracle in itself. But
It
since
was
he's
a
watched
hostage
it,
situation.
exactly. But but since he has already watched that show, we are just I want to hear his thoughts on it, and we can go about using his extreme experience in reading and watching shows and movies and content, and try and figure out why exactly my weeaboo-ness is going to be a problem, or whether or not he actually liked the show that I recommended to him. And anyway, glad to have you on the show, Samaksh. How are you doing?
Uh, how am I doing? I'm fine. Like, is this an interview?
It can be if you want it to be.
No, thank you. I've done enough interviews for a lifetime.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah. Uh, Karan, I'm just gonna call him Patil. Patil had this idea that he wanted to turn me into a weeaboo, and yeah, I generally don't like anime, and he's correct. I do despise it for the most part. So to sort of lure me into the weeaboo land, Patil recommended an anime to me. What anime did you recommend, Patil, for the audience?
It's called Death Parade. It released in 2015 in the winter, and it's by a studio called Studio Madhouse. Details which probably Smax has absolutely no idea of, since he's just watched the show. But yeah,
I know one studio, and that's Studio Ghibli. That's it. Okay.
fair enough, fair enough. I have never watched Studio Ghibli, so in that regard, I think you're much more cultured in respect to their anime taste than I am.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm really surprised by that. Since I'm like the newcomer here, I'm just gonna like give my sort of brief summary of what I think Death Parade was. So that it was the premise of the show is essentially that two people come to a bar and they're forced to play a game. It's generally bar games like darts, bowling, pool, etc. And depending on how the game goes and how they react during the game, one person wins, one person loses, etc. However, the game doesn't really matter. It's mostly how the game is played. And at the end of this game, these two people are sentenced to either heaven or hell, or as the show calls it, reincarnation or the void. Right. So, I mean, uh, not a great situation to be in. However, I will say, as a premise, quite interesting. My main problem with anime is the melodrama,
Uh
and
huh.
I don't have too much experience in anime, but like I watched like a little bit of Naruto, some Death Note, etc. It's like most people don't really like scream while they're talking, or don't really like have seven sighs in the middle of a sentence, and it just really gets on my nerves, to be honest, that whole part in anime.
Okay.
And it's a bit melodramatic and overacted to me. Yeah, and I think that's how it's meant to be. Like, I think anime is sort of supposed to be exaggerated, and an exaggerated lifestyle and exaggerated culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this show sort of it surprised me because I actually liked it. I know Parel's going to be very happy about it. He's going to be like, "Oh, that Stockholm syndrome is really kicking in now."
Yeah, you're not in the same room as me, man. You should see the grin on my face right now. Like, I can't help it. You said you liked anime. That is something that I've already. That's a win in my books. Okay, that's already a win in my books.
For listening, this is already all I wanted. We can just like shut this
Yes.
podcast down.
We can shut this down. We don't even need to record any more episodes. Samshar watched an anime and he freaking liked it. I think that's
And it was like 4 hours long, man.
yeah. 12 episodes. Nothing compared to Naruto and Death Note or any of the other shows that you have tried watching. And
Yeah.
yeah. So about your point about it being melodramatic, it's one of the tropes in anime to have the characters express emotion in that way. And the reason why the genre is built around this is that it sells in Japan. Like it's basically what the demographic it's basically what it's aimed at. When you look at people in Japan, their entire culture revolves around collectivism and the fact that you need to sacrifice the self for society. You need to be polite. You can't voice your opinion too loudly in public. You can't the entire senior junior relationship in Japan. I mean, see, look at us. I mean, you can come there and insult me all you want, but it doesn't work the same way in Japan, right? From high schools to the entire work environment that they have there is entirely the senpai kohai relationship, where the senpai being the elder, the more experienced person out of the lot, and the kohai being the junior person who is subordinate in some ways to the senpai. And this works from all the way from middle school to the workforce. And so they're very reserved people in their culture where they live. And so this is sort of an outlet, if you want, like for example how a lot of US sitcoms deal with, there are families and friends who hang out together at all the time in like, and pay obscenely low amounts of rent and have jobs that
Which is
cannot.
how do
Right.
they afford rent, man?
Exactly. So I feel this is just a theory that I had. I don't know whether it's valid or not. I haven't seen
Right.
enough Western shows for me to really comment on this. But just tell me if this is something that you've seen as well. So in most television wherever around the world, they try to show you what is not in their culture. Like for example, in Indian shows, the amount of melodrama and the Sas Bahu dynamic, it exists, but even Indians are very repressed as a populace, and so you will very rarely see a Sas Bahu series that just suddenly explodes into conflict in the real world. But the TV shows it.
Fair enough. Fair enough, yeah. You also don't see like a slap being repeated thrice and viewed from like multiple angles in real life.
Exactly. And,
Although I would love to see that.
oh, yeah, definitely. If you had that kind of triple vision where you could just switch POVs at a split second and see Thana, 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 and like 3 slaps in a row.
If you have that superpower and the only thing you use it for is for watching like a sauce slap a bahu 3 times, that's it. That's the only use of that superpower.
I want that superpower. I goddamn want that superpower. Just the ability to teleport twice or thrice a fixed distance of approximately half a meter to view a dramatic action from a different angle. That's the dream.
And that's it.
Screw Superman. This is the dream.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I can't blame you.
So, similar to how US shows family values in their sitcoms, I mean, relatively speaking, family values in their sitcoms, Japan as a repressed populace and India as a repressed populace like themselves some melodrama to even things out, so to speak.
So where do the tentacles come into this? What part of like the repressed Japan population has a real tentacle problem?
If I had to answer this seriously, it's just basically that the concept of sex and the concept of any of these acts is not as taboo in Japan as it is in India. Or even in the US, for example. We think the US is a bunch of, I don't know, just free people doing whatever crap they want. But it's not like that, right? You see the entire rural USA, the Christian upbringings that these people have and the way they live their lives, it's kind of very moral and religious, right? Japan's the opposite. You can buy porn like on the street. You can buy there are vending machines for like toys. There are vending machines for like fun stuff that you can just buy. You can buy beer in a vending machine right out on the street. So as a culture, they've just come to accept that some people will have fetishes.
And boy, do they. So yeah, I like I said, the premise of the show is actually the most compelling part, right? The essential question being, do you deserve to go like to the reincarnation or to the void, which is the show makes a different distinction between heaven and hell and reincarnation in the void. It seems to be pretty much rather similar, to be honest, in terms of the eventual fate. So initially when I saw it, it seemed like Supernatural Saw, like making people like play twisted games and then passing judgment on them. That's the initial impression I got from like the first episode, right? Which I was like okay with. It intrigued me, It didn't turn me away. But then I like how the universe is sort of fleshed out, as in all the characters over the course of it's an anthology of sorts. You don't meet most of the characters again except for the bartender and the assistant and their supervisors, the ones that are working behind the scenes. And we'll get to the meta narrative later. I kind of want to discuss the individual narratives first, the episodic narratives, because for me, in a way, the episodic narratives were the best part of the show. They were essentially just like short stories, 20-minute bite-sized for the most part, and I liked how there's a good sense of pacing here. It hits you with some really like twisted ideas, or it'll show like a dysfunctional marriage that leads to the husband killing the wife in the first episode itself. And I sort of expected this to be like Black Mirror-esque almost. Everything is eventually going to take a dark turn. Everything's going to go for the worse. Whereas the third episode itself, the bowling episode, I think, that's an incredibly sweet episode. And I thought it was clever because the show has built this sort of, by introducing itself as a very depressing episode in the first one and expanding on it in the second one, you're expecting things to go wrong in the third episode, whereas it never goes wrong. It just ends up being a sweet childhood romance story. Like they're grown up now. It's not like a child marriage thing. It's just like a childhood romance story.
Yeah.
And then this sort of keeps alternating. So I liked how they would throw in a few light episodes in the middle to balance out all the darkness that would be in all the others. For instance, for episode 8 and 9 are probably where the show peaks for me. The vigilante issue, I think that's probably where the show that peaks, and it never gets that same high, but it certainly sets a very high standard. I will say this show really could have used some streamlining, in my opinion.
Okay.
There are a lot of episodes that seem to not really go anywhere. For instance, the whole the Twister piece, the Harada and the fangirl episode.
Yes.
I did not care for that shit. Like, dude, you could have cut that entire plot line. I would not have cared.
Yeah, that is I agree with you there. That's kind of like where you suddenly see a new arbiter, like
Yeah.
his name is Ginty. You see him and you see the lady, and the high school entire aspect. If you're not looking for that kind of thing in that show, that episode is clearly pandering. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you there that if you're not somebody who's invested into the subculture of Japan, you will see that and you will be like, what is this nonsense that's going on? And I agree with you.
I'm going to be honest, Patil, that episode was rough. Like, I had my face in my hands for like most of the episode, and I was going, God damn it. I really wanted to turn it off at that point, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's like the most anime episode I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, one of the episodes that the concepts that pulls it down, like especially for viewers not interested in the fangirling over an idol concept. And I didn't care much for Ginty either. Like, he just emerges out of nowhere, challenges our main boy, and just loses.
What was he doing there? What was the point?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's in like he's in the he's in the title card, and the whole opening song that plays, he's there, and the show ended. I'm just going, what the fuck was Ginty doing here? I didn't like. I get why he exists. Okay, it's to show the difference between how like Decim is an arbiter and how the other arbiters are.
Yeah.
But what the fuck? You couldn't have picked a more interesting character.
So a word in Ginty's defense is that he actually is like a very popular stereotype. The cold brooding guy who just, doesn't give a fuck and just happens to sit there judging people sadistically. Again, he was brought in as a contrast, like you said, to the emotionless main guy, Dekim. Right?
Right.
He just sits there and judges people and sadistically plays Twister with them of all things.
Yeah.
Right. And like I mentioned, the games are predetermined. It's not like they come in and they decide. It's based on the memories that come in that the game gets decided.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you completely that the entire scene with Ginty and Mayu and Harada and all of that was
I'm just my favorite part was that at the end of that like episode 6, okay, they aren't sentenced simply because they want a scene where Harada does a fucking dance show for everyone there. And I'm just going, what is happening? What happened in this show? it's 5 episodes of, oh boy, we gotta really make sure we judge people correctly. And then there's like dance plus happening. What the fuck?
Yeah, man, exactly.
I half expected that, oh, did Harada like choreograph these people for that opening number that they do every time? Like, what the fuck was happening?
Yeah, that was exactly. So that was the show trying to pander to an audience and failing. Like I'm a weeb, and even I didn't like that episode.
and it didn't even end there. They're there till episode 11.
Yeah,
like when he sentences
Mayu.
When he sentences Mayu and Harada, and they both go into the void holding hands.
Yeah,
which is where I want to get to, the episodic narratives themselves actually.
Okay.
So with the episodes themselves, like I mentioned, I liked episode 8 and 9 the most, even though they were fucked up, man. Like they left me a bit affected, let's say, because it's some dark shit.
Yeah.
For people who haven't watched it, the basic the quick plot summary is that one guy, his sister gets assaulted, and in a rage he goes and he finds a stalker who did it and he murders him. Whereas there's a detective whose wife is also murdered, and he kills the person who has murdered his wife. And these two people are playing, I believe it's like air hockey. They call it, I think, rally, but it's essentially air hockey. And they're playing air hockey, and they're both playing to win because they don't know they're dead, so they want to win so that they can go back and avenge their loved ones' deaths, right?
Yeah.
And turns out that the student had actually killed the detective as well, believing that he was there when the crime was happening, and he actually turned out to be there when the crime had happened. No, that was actually a very interesting narrative with how they built it. They gave you clues, and they put all of it together at the end to essentially put the question to you as to what should a person do in this situation. Because the vigilante issue is something which is a very interesting question. Batman, for instance, is like probably the most well-known example of a vigilante.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, hey, he saves people, but he also sort of like beats them up, or like sometimes murders them. If you're Ben Affleck, straight up, Ben Affleck had a straight up like machine gun in that movie, by the way. I mean, he's shooting people. Okay,
what about,
he has a gun.
What about the entire premise of Batman never killing anybody?
Yeah. Ben Affleck was just like, nah, fuck that. My point is, I have mixed feelings on this episode because I feel like it would have been so much better if the detective didn't turn into an outright villain by the end.
Okay.
Because they showed that the detective witnessed the assault and didn't stop it. for a very weird reason, which is that, oh, there needs to be a criminal for me to kill him,
Uh-huh.
right? And I was like, okay, you could have killed him then, by the way, like
I
it's not like,
guess.
yeah, but the main point being that's a really weird reason, in my opinion.
Okay.
Again, it's supposed to be a twisted, he's supposed to be a twisted person. So it's not a question of character. It's more like, imagine if the scenario had been that, he had witnessed it, but like he didn't intervene because he knew the guy or something. So it would have been, the detective playing double standards almost.
Okay.
That he killed someone who killed his wife, however, because he knows this person and he believes that he's a good person and he makes a mistake, he didn't, pass judgment onto him. But by essentially turning him into, an accessory to the crime,
Okay.
it's very hard to defend the detective's actions. It
Huh.
just
But
turns him into a outright villain.
so you're not supposed to defend the detective's actions after a certain point of time, which is the entire premise, I feel, and which is why if you see the build up to the episode, yeah, the white-haired, short, thin lady Nona, right, the boss of all the arbiters, supposed boss, and just under the godlike Oculus character with the weird flowery beard.
Beard.
Yeah.
That's fucked up here.
Yeah, that was damn messed up even when I saw it. And I was like, why is he here? What purpose does he serve? Okay, except that things must be the way they are. And I'm like, you don't need to be here for to say these things. Like he's
But
just
by the way,
yeah.
there was in episode 12. There's a line which is like, "It makes my flower shrivel." He says, "I'm."
Oh
Dude, I noted that line now, dude.
yeah, that was very cringy. Like especially the you see the face of the man saying this, there's a
Yeah,
voice actor behind it and you still cringe.
yeah,
Yeah, so Nona hesitates before sending the memories to Dekim about this particular situation. The other people ask her, "Do you want to send it to this guy?" But because uh, it's a case that again she frankly thinks that somebody of Dekim, and even especially with his assistant there, uh, shouldn't be handled by somebody with those kind of values, right? And so the entire point of the detective becoming unredeemable, at least that's what I thought. I'm not defending this show, but what I thought is that the reason why the detective became unrepentant was because the way the power corrupted him. Because it's have you heard of Max Payne, right? You definitely heard of Max Payne.
yeah.
Right. So in Max Payne 1 and 2, all he does is, he goes to avenge his family because his wife and daughter die. And he spends the first two games consumed by that purpose. Let's just avenge them and baad mein ka baad mein dekh lenge. Let's figure out what happens later on. But
Right.
after he's done with it and the third game starts approximately 10 years after the original first two games, you see him a shell of his former being. You see him still dealing with corruption. You see him still killing people. You still see him end up in situations that have no easy way out or easy answer out. And he still takes the shittier route out. And that's because the trial of avenging his wife and daughter just turned him into that sort of person. And
Okay.
so Tatsumi, he is similar, where under this misguided belief, which in their head sounds extremely reasonable, that they are there to do the right thing. They are still doing the right thing as per their own thought processes. They continue to do these things. It's only because you have the contrasting perspective of the student, the boy, that we realize that this was fucked up. Right. So, for example,
True.
yeah. So, for example, if you're only in Tatsumi's head, he would have been like, "Yeah, I need to watch this guy perform a crime so that I'm able to do my vigilante shit on him." Right. If he doesn't perform the crime and I go there and I scare him off and I save the girl, he is going to go commit another crime. This reasoning is flimsy, I agree. Right. For relatively rational-headed people like you and me.
Yeah.
Yes, we are rational. We are rational. I
let's just move on from that part.
Yeah, let's move on from that. So for relatively rational people like you and me, it's like, okay, this is flimsy reasoning. This is messed up, right? But I think there is a justification for what he did, and it doesn't redeem him. It just, to his head, it justified it.
I see your point. Yeah, I see your point.
So, and again, like you see you kind of choreography that they did, right? Aligned the entire chips, the entire air hockey pucks in one line with all the organs on it, and you knew he was gonna stab that totem pole of organs.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me you didn't think you didn't telegraph that happening. That's definitely happening.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, see, since that entire episode had been so dark, you just saw it happening that, since they're both so consumed by revenge, that they're both sort of, in a way, it was like the student was supposed to be the noble end of revenge, whereas the detective was the darker end of revenge.
Yeah.
And in the end, both of them just merged together into the same, the same darkness.
Yeah.
So that episode, I think, was like I mentioned, perhaps the best one because I thought about that for quite a while. I was very conflicted about how the story went and whether what either of them did was correct or incorrect. I'm still not sure as to what the answer is, but that got me thinking, and I think that's a good, that's a sign of a good show.
Yeah.
But there are also some really, sweet, nice episodes which I enjoyed quite a bit. For instance, there's an episode where there's a manga artist, right? And she's just playing cards with Dekim and Chiyuki. Yeah.
Chiyuki, yes.
With Dekim, with Dekim and Chiyuki. And there's nothing really happens in that episode. But it's just a very, nice break from the depravity which happened in episode 8 and 9. Like coming off of that sort of, twisted shock and horror, you get a very laid back episode wherein it's just people reminiscing about good things and sort of giving some wisdom as to how their life has went and how they feel about it.
Okay.
Episode 11 and 12, I think they're good, right? However, this is where I'll say my opinion will probably differ from yours.
Okay.
I did not enjoy the meta narrative.
Just because people might not have watched the show, can you just summarize what the meta narrative is?
Right, yeah. So while all these episodes are happening, where Dekim, the bartender, and his assistant Chiyuki are helping judge the guests who have come, there is a sort of meta narrative that spans across all the episodes, wherein it's revealed that Dekim, who is an arbiter, has actually has been imparted with human emotions to see how this affects the judgment process by Nona, who is their supervisor. And the meta narrative is essentially showing how Dekim begins to feel emotions and begins to question the decision process that they have, and it eventually leads to him having to judge Chiyuki and the effects of that on Dekim as an arbiter and how this changes things for him. Which is interesting. However, this is pretty much Blade Runner. I'll be honest.
Okay.
As in, this is the replicant issue from Blade Runner, but not done as well, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because Chiyuki is the mysterious character, right? She's the character that builds up the intrigue. You want to know what her past is. You want to know who is she and why is she so special. It's revealed that that she committed suicide because she got depressed. She was an ice skater. She got injured and couldn't perform anymore. So she got depressed because she thought that she couldn't relate, that her family and her friends couldn't understand her, and she ends up slitting her wrists.
Yes.
Pretty messed up. But this same issue had already been explored in a bunch of episodes. Like as in some of the episodes before this, the characters had committed suicide to come to the bar.
The one with the arcade game.
Exactly. The one with the arcade game.
Yeah.
I was honestly expecting like a huge plot twist, to be honest. I thought that Chiyuki, who seemed so sweet and nice, was actually going to be some sort of like serial killer or something. Like, I don't know. But the fact that there was no real plot twist as such. It was just, oh, she was an ice skater and she killed herself, and yeah, like how do you judge her, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is, having the meta narrative, which is spanning over 12 episodes, having essentially the same ending to an episode which was 20 minutes long in episode 4, which is the arcade episode.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In the
Yeah.
arcade episode, there's a guy who's killed himself and he realizes how badly he fucked up at the end of the episode. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's pretty much the same ending in the arcade episode and of the show with Anne of Chiyuki. Right.
Yeah.
It felt a bit lackluster because I'll say this: the handling of the topics is done very well, right?
Okay.
The portrayal of the depression and suicide of Chiyuki is actually handled very, I'll say, elegantly. Is handled very carefully, and it doesn't. It actually values life and shows that you shouldn't throw things away just because you think there's no chance of things ever getting better. I really appreciated how well they tackled that particular topic. But in terms of the whole meta narrative, in terms of building the whole meta narrative, I felt that it really just wasn't as, it didn't hit me as hard as it should have, because in the arcade episode, Deccan has already shown, he already shows compassion to both the people that are playing. He already shows compassion to the guy who killed himself. So
But back then it's like back then it's a dispassionate sort of thing where he's only doing it because of his own mantra that I will take in the darkness that these people have, and it's not coming from a emotional perspective. I agree with you that the suicide trope was repeated, and yeah. See, again, like you said, it's done pretty beautifully. Did you like the figure skating skin? I think that was like insanely well done.
yeah,
The puppets playing the piano, this fellow manipulating them to clap, and her literally living through her life as she was skating. I felt so, while it didn't serve any purpose,
yeah,
quite like, very very harshly saying this, I put this in my notes as well, that it didn't really serve a purpose apart from making us love Chiyuki as a character. At least me, making me love Chiyuki as a character.
yeah.
It did nothing to further the narrative. I agree. So then I felt that it was more like you are giving. So again, I presume, given how much this show has in terms of world building, it seems like this has been going on for a long time and is going to go on for a long time.
Right.
So it's not a genre officially listed for this show because it does not fit it except in the most perverted way possible. It's slice of life.
Oh God. Okay.
Right, because there are so many themes that you're seeing a slice of the arbiters judging the dead people. You are seeing a slice of the dead people's lives. You are seeing a slice of Chiyuki's life, and that is not what the genre is. I agree.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say this part. Slice of life. Fucking everyone in the anime is dead or a mannequin. What life?
Slice of death.
Yeah, it's called
slice of death.
Yeah, that I'd be more okay with it being called that than slice of life.
Fine. Let's go with slice of death.
Yeah.
So
that should be the episode name.
Ooh, that would be a nice episode name, no? Like
Yeah.
if especially that if they had that episode deal with like the entire origin story of the arbiters. Because you see them in, again, like with any other this thing, you see them being shown as a sort of steampunk-esque thing where they are technologically advanced enough to have puppets who can judge people and get memories transplanted into them by telepathy or telekinesis or whatever they're using.
Yeah.
And you also have the entire manual process of having to sort through memories and the brass and iron sort of aesthetic of the entire background scene.
Yeah.
Right, and the trains, they still ride on trains. Like, why would you ride on trains if you're in a futuristic situation? Unless it's very clearly meant to convey steampunk.
Did the hipsters do it?
Yeah, you see the opening, right?
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the show.
Dude, what the fuck is the opening, man? I've ignored
It won.
It's like 3 minutes long.
a minute and a half. That's a standard anime
It
length.
feels,
But yeah, I
feels like
agree.
an eternity.
So that actually won the best opening of 2015, by the
Are
way.
you serious?
Okay. The song is insanely catchy. Okay, it is ridiculously catchy.
I'll say this. Yeah, I've been humming it to myself. That is true.
Exactly. But I like the ending better, like because it fits the theme of the show more.
Yeah.
Especially like the detective wala episode where he rams a knife into those chips as the song starts playing,
Yeah, yeah.
and my mind just blew.
Yeah,
It's like
that's pretty cool.
this this is a crescendo. Like, yes, we have reached that pinnacle of tension, right? So even in the first episode, if you see the ending, they have very in again like snips, like snapshots.
Yeah, yeah.
They have depicted their life as the ending plays.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is why the entire OP and ED feel like I enjoyed them both, even though the OP, like, it's just so out there. Like it has nothing to do with the show.
So for people who haven't watched it, the opening scene is a fucking dance number. It's as random as a Bollywood music video, okay? And it's never explained except for maybe the harada and the harada dance thing. I don't get why
Yeah.
any of it happened. Half the characters are just like, they show up for like 5 seconds. I don't know what happened in that
Yeah.
dancing.
They're just having fun. But yeah, so the song really got to me because the first episode itself, the sort of in my notes I've written it down that plenty of shows take a while to get started, right? Like take at least 2-3 episodes to build the world, to do that.
Right.
With a show like this, you don't have the luxury to do that because it's only 12 episodes. But a lot of shows still, especially in the anime sphere, take some time to get started. So again, like since you're not part of the community, you won't know this, but it's something called the 3-episode rule. So whenever you are watching a new anime or a new show that's either airing currently or is an old show that somebody recommended to you, you give it 3 episodes. Okay, and even if it's absolute crap on the second episode, even if the premise doesn't appeal to you, but you've at least started it, you give it 3 episodes. And after 3 episodes, if you think you want to stick with it, you stick with it. If you ditch it at 3 episodes, nobody really, like, no harm done. Like, people say, okay, no hard feelings, you at least gave it a decent try.
Okay.
Right. But so this is one of the shows, like I wrote it in my notes as well, where the first episode grips you.
True.
It might not deliver on that premise in the end, like you said, but the first episode does grip you.
True.
If you see that first episode where he runs to do something to her, like the Takashi, the husband,
Yeah.
goes to, stab Michi. I don't remember her name, but anyway, whatever. He goes to stab his wife with the darts.
Yeah.
And you see Dekim just making a flourish of his hand and like spiderweb stop him.
Right.
The entire cinema, the way the camera, it's a invisible camera, but the way the camera pans and it shows the action is actually kind of pretty well done, if you put it that way.
I would say, like, I don't know much about like animation and anime, but even to me, this looked very, very polished.
Yeah, it's one of the more polished shows out there. And so, oh, look at us, we are making a very nice natural segue into the next topic that I wanted to discuss, and that is the presentation. We have dealt with the plot, we have dealt with the characters, we have dealt with the structure of the show and whether or not it lives up to its premise. So what do you think about the presentation, like just as a layperson?
Here's my first problem, okay? It's a bad bar, dude. What the fuck is up with this bar? They offer drinks to no one, okay? Like, the worst part is the pilot of the show called Death Pool or like Death Billiards.
Yeah.
It starts off with like the two guests, chilling and like having a drink at the bar.
Yeah.
And the entire show, this is such a minor criticism, but it just like, it just kept like niggling me. I was like, God damn it, if it's a bar, why these, like, Dekim and Chiyuki are the ones drinking up all the liquor. The guests are dead. You can't even give them a drink, seriously.
Yeah, man, like I agree with you there. Like,
That's a 1 star on Yelp. I'm sorry, okay?
solid point. Queen Dekim is a bar.
Send me to the void. I don't care. You're getting a 1 star.
Yelp negative review right out there. You can screw it, deal with it.
But in terms of presentation, I think it's really well made.
Yeah.
With the exception of episode 6,
Mm-hmm.
which really felt just like a outright, anime episode.
Uh-huh.
The presentation is very well made because, uh, so in each of the episodes they have a sort of mini flashback where they show the memories of the person,
Yeah.
and those are so well made, that you have to really be paying attention. As in, the show does a very good job of showing, not telling, with the memories.
Yeah.
It'll tell you the entire life of a person and all the events that led to them being who they are in the span of like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I thought the way they've handled that was really good.
Yeah.
The concept of the games, I thought was actually like, the way they linked the game to the person,
Yeah.
that also really fit together very well. One very minor thing that I had was that they repeated the organs being linked across the show, which,
Yeah.
I mean, it's an easy one, but I wish they'd been a bit more creative with it.
And sometimes
I
it just
don't know
felt
how.
lazy. Sometimes it just felt lazy. Right. Especially with
Yeah.
the happy-go-lucky episode, the third one, where they go on a date before realizing that, okay, we are dead.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, I get it. The organs are linked to what you're playing. Is there gonna be like a different, spin on this at any point?
Yeah.
And there wasn't, I think.
Yeah. The entire just putting your fingers into somebody's heart thing didn't really click for me. So I was actually expecting you to you said it was a pretty feel good episode. I was actually expecting you to have a pretty big rant on that one. Like, why do you? I mean, it's nice and all, but it's just like not compelling enough, right? Just like you said, like plastic surgery, yeah, whatever. But okay, good, pleasant surprise.
That's a I'll say this, that's an inoffensive episode. The reason I liked it was because the plot twist was that there wasn't a plot twist.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
Because I was 100% being like, oh shit. Like I guessed that he wasn't gonna be that, that the woman wasn't gonna be the woman he said he missed.
Yeah.
Cause fuck that.
Yeah.
But I thought it was gonna be something like, he killed the woman and I don't know.
Yeah.
Like buried the body or something like that.
Yeah. Given the theme of the other episodes.
Yeah. Because I was 100% expecting that there's gonna be either murder or chopping of bodies or murder and chopping of bodies.
Yeah, the show primes you to think that way though.
Yeah, and then they're just like, nah, she got plastic surgery. I'm like, the fuck? The way these people were just like building it up, and I'm like, she got plastic surgery. First of all, who's letting a high schooler do plastic surgery?
Eh.
And second of all, wow, this is okay, I guess,
It ended pretty nicely. Guy realized that she isn't the woman of his dreams who moved away, but rather not the woman of his dreams who stuck around. And so he's like, let me reward that loyalty. And I'm like, oh.
Hey guys, we all gotta settle at some point, okay?
Yeah. But then I still like get me back to the gore.
Yeah. It's like I get it. Oh, but also like, can you just like chuck the bowling ball around or something, man?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, at least one skull needs to be caved in by a bowling ball. Otherwise, this is not Death Parade.
Yeah. I was like, okay, it's Death Parade, okay? Like,
Yeah.
Why is it called Death Parade?
It's like it's like a Thanksgiving Day parade sort of situation. Is at least see, this is what I think, that it's a parade of characters going through the bar, and each of them have died, which is why it's a parade of death.
Okay.
If you see the alternate title, it's Parade of Death, not Death Parade. So it's not a parade it's not Thanksgiving Day parade like to celebrate Thanksgiving Day. It's a parade of death, which means it's a parade, a group of people. Now I'm very conscious of the word parade now, but just deal with it.
Yeah.
It's just a line. it's a line of people subsequently who come in an episodic format and just who have died.
Because I'll be honest, the reason I was okay with the opening sequence initially was because I thought they're all dancing, this is the Death Parade. Right? and then I'm like, the series ended and there's no conga line of people dancing. I feel lied to. Okay.
Yeah, except Harada. Come on, he's there, hot boy.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, him becoming a mannequin probably increased his personality.
Oh yeah, definitely. He was that flashy smile, and they gave us effect.
Yeah.
They gave an effect to his smile. He'll just like make a finger gun and smile, and Mayu will just be like, "Oh."
That's a very accurate fangirl voice. You've done that before.
Of course, I've done it before, man. Come on,
Jesus.
give me some credit. One last thing before we can summarize on what we think. Did you though notice the two icons above the elevators? That was
Yeah.
that was their way of telling you. In some episode, they don't tell you, right, what happens to both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how they tell you who's going to reincarnation, who's going to void.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes they do tell you, but those things were pretty important for you know rewatching purposes, because some people miss it and then they go back and like, what exactly happened? Nobody, like, this show sucks. They never told us what happened. And I'm like you said, show don't tell. So they show you. A lot of the times, the
Yeah.
show shows you the thing instead of it just telling you what happened.
Yeah. So I think there's actually a question that maybe we should have discussed a lot earlier. Um, with the central premise, I discussed the meta narrative. Did you like, the meta narrative is also about how they're judging. Did you like the way that they were doing the judgment? Like, did you agree with Dekim or did you agree with Chiyuki?
I agreed with Dekim, because
Okay.
I feel an arbitration, as we do in all of our legal systems, as we do in pretty much everywhere you see, an arbitration of good or evil has to be done from an impartial perspective. There are caveats, I agree, but those caveats are introduced by the show itself, are not introduced by the concept, where the arbiters cannot feel emotion, the arbiters cannot, get emotionally attached or can't remember past judgments. That's stupid. Because if you see judges, the reason why 80-year-olds make Supreme Court or 70-year-olds make Supreme Court is because they have the experience of past cases and the ability to use that experience and the emotions they felt then to make the judgment. But in the end, if you still look at it, they are upheld, like they are held to a standard of impartiality, because in an ideal situation they are held to an standard of impartiality. So I feel Dekim can be impartial by virtue of him being an arbiter, but he still doesn't need to be emotionless and drive those characters to do those dark things.
Okay. And what about what Deccan believes is that you should judge people on their worst moments,
Yeah.
right? And whereas Chiyuki is like the worst moments are not a representation of who people are, because people are just inherently simple.
Yeah.
You make them mad, they'll do bad things. You make them happy, they'll do good things.
Yeah.
They aren't as complex as everyone says they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think about that one? Because I'm very curious about what your opinion is on that whole aspect.
Yeah, so the entire premise of heaven and hell is based upon the concept of, good or bad, whether a person was subjectively, see, now they're trying to take something that is inherently subjective, that is good or bad, and trying to make it into an objective thing, right? Which can then be judged on, these situations. And they do emphasize a lot on how difficult it is to make something as subjective. Like they show it in the background processes, where the people separating the memories also are having a tough time deciding what's relevant and what's not, and the arbiters themselves having a tough time figuring out where to send who, and very circumstantial things like that entire lie that Machiko makes about her unborn child, pivoting the judgment after they have seen so much of Takashi being an asshole. The one lie that this lady tells pivots his judgment. So it's still very subjective. So I feel because of the inherent subjectivity, there is no right answer.
There isn't, but like an opinion doesn't have to be right or wrong, right?
Yeah. So, and it is because that there is no right answer, is that I want to give each arbiter's judging methodology a pass. Like, cool,
Okay.
I agree with it. Like, yeah, fine. Ginti can be sadistic, Dekim can be impartial and emotionless and whatever. And Chiyuki can be emotional and try attaching value to sentiment and to, giving them a fair chance, if you would say. So,
Right.
yeah, that is something that I just say, okay, to each their own, if that makes any sense.
Fair enough, I guess.
Right. So
I,
yeah.
I, I had like a sort of mixed opinion myself on this, to be honest. For me, it felt like this felt like an entrance exam. It's like a JE exam, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting judged on how you react during the game,
Yeah.
whereas you have, you know, like 40, 50, 60 years of mistakes or good things that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna get judged on, you know, like this 5 minute game of darts or whatever.
Okay.
It felt sort of, I understand like why, like it has to be there because that's just how the show works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it felt slightly reductive to me.
Hmm.
You could be a horrible person for most of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, if you performed well, like if you were on your best behavior while this game was happening, you you get a free pass essentially.
Okay.
While I agree that you know, I don't disagree with him judging them on the worst moments,
Okay.
but at some point I felt that, you know, it's sort of really diminishing the value that should have been put on the rest of the life experiences. I get that the rest of the life experiences lead to a person being who they are,
Yeah.
and that's what you sort of try to extract in their worst
Mm-hmm.
moments. But it still feels to me that, you know, there are people who can be worse than me in their worst moments, but who in general are much better people,
True.
right? So you're comparing a peak with an average here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're taking the peak as the answer instead of the average. It feels slightly problematic, but
Yeah.
as this isn't related to the show. This was just like, you know, and how you judge people
True.
outside of this is also something which which you can probably, you know, relate to. Do you judge? You know, you're like, oh, my best friend committed murder, but you know, he did lend me that 10 rupees that one time.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah. My best friend committed murder 10 years ago, but yesterday I needed 10 rupees and he gave me 10 rupees. I think he's an awesome person. And
Yeah, and like, you know, what's gone is gone. Do you move on from that? I don't know. It's basically you. There needs to be. I think the average sort of works out better.
so the reason I saw in this show, right, when you said that the judgment was reductive, there are two counters to this that I had. One, that the memories that are sent to Dekim play a role in this. One, the
Hmm.
memories of their lives are actually condensed down into, you know, the metaphorical
Yeah,
painting,
yeah.
stained glass sort of painting that then gets sent over to the arbiters. And
Right. Yeah.
the second is that it's a slice of death, and they're only
Yeah.
showing you the interesting cases. They show you they show you two cases actually where this doesn't apply, where it's not as reductive as you think it is, right? Because if you are
Yeah.
trying to, like, for example, the date episode, and second would be the
Vigilante.
old lady episode,
Oh, the manga one. Yeah,
the
yeah.
manga artist, right? Where she's just a nice lady, and you see him having a relatively chill game where no lives are at stake and nothing. They're just playing old maid and, you know,
Yeah.
digging up Chiyuki's past while they're at it. uh,
Yeah.
and it ends on a very happy note. She's like, huh, okay, I'm dead. I think I've lived a very fulfilled life. This makes sense to me. And so
Yeah.
you are shown, I feel, in some senses, all three ways. The happy-go-lucky good way where the games are relatively chill and there is no stakes involved. Then the ultra degenerate ones where, you know, like the detective one where Tatsumi and the student basically just go ape
Hmm.
shit and just, you know, just go crazy. And then you have
Yeah.
the ones in the middle, the ones in the middle being specifically the arcade episode to me, because uh,
Hmm.
if you see that guy, the guy who killed himself, right,
Hmm.
he gets reincarnated,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he gets reincarnated merely because he shows regret for committing suicide,
Yeah.
right? And the lady who has received the short end of the stick her entire life, who has just been
Hmm.
like just screwed over by life at every turn. You see that in the flashback, right? Like a
Yeah.
bunch of abusive boyfriends, a bunch of babies, and then no way to earn for them except doing reality TV. And a lot of her backstory seems to strike a chord with me. But yeah, she has done nothing, but for that she loses control of herself and slams his, you know, and then slams that guy, her opponent's, the suicide guy's head right into the game console. And
Hmm.
that was a good moment, like in terms of like meta wise, where you see a character finally break on the show, and I was really taken aback. I was like, "Oh, okay, wow, okay, this is good, this is good, this is a good turn." Okay.
Yeah.
And but then you see her going to hell, and again I feel that they address that. Chiyuki tells Dekim, that's not the right way to do it. You forced her into it, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is something that like Chiyuki brings up to Dekim, as in that that you're judging them on a game that's reductive, etc. My point is that I just agree with Chiyuki there.
Huh, fair
I
enough.
do think that the show tackles like this problem. I was just saying that personally, I think that I felt like Chiyuki had a good point there.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree. I agree with you there. But I side with Dekim simply for his impartiality. Chiyuki tends to get swayed a little bit more by the emotions of the characters than what they've actually done. But again, like that's why they make a good combination in the show, right? Like
Yeah,
they play off
you
of
know.
each other. And while it's still I still feel it's not really a fair thing to call them partners. She is his assistant after all, and in the end who gets to get reincarnated and who goes into the void is still Deckham's decision.
Yeah.
So fair enough, but she's still there as a foil to, as an experiment. And the entire conspiracy theory, like just if you want to put your tinfoil hat on for a second, the entire conspiracy theory that how Ginty has that fake puppet who comes in along with him of fabricated memories,
Huh.
right? That guy who drinks beer and suddenly says, "Oh, I recognize you. I've been here before."
Yeah.
What if Chiyuki, just just putting it out there, what if Chiyuki was somebody who Nona had planted to ensure Dekim feels his emotions?
Oh, so you're saying Chiyuki was a mannequin herself? I mean, she was a mannequin, but like, she wasn't a real person.
Yeah, she might have been, but the reason Chiyuki was sent in, and they show her remembering that she had died, right? And that being
Hmm.
unusual. And anything unusual that happens in the show has always been the responsibility of somebody fucking around.
That's interesting actually. Yeah, I didn't think of that. But yeah, that would actually make a lot more sense to be honest.
Right. So then the entire decision making that happens in the last two episodes is not about Chiyuki, is actually about Dekim.
Oh, so when they say they imparted an arbiter with emotions, they meant that they meant Chiyuki basically. Like they didn't like put the emotions into Dekim. It's just that they had Chiyuki following him around.
Yeah, they put the capacity to feel emotions in Dekim, and they awakened those
Right.
emotions using Chiyuki as the sort of what you call stimulus for his experiment.
Oh, that's interesting. Like Chiyuki being a like the replicant herself is actually like something that I didn't consider. But yeah, that actually makes it like a much better makes it a much better plot twist. Yeah.
Which is why, so the first time I watched it the way you did, with going with the punches as the show gave it to be, and reacting to the show rather than proactively looking for what like elements that the show might be trying to tell you that you can't see in a first watch. So then that is why,
Right.
despite I understanding that it might have been torturous, I recommended that you watch the show a second time, maybe later. You don't have to do it now, but because when you these are certain, like the even shows that I'm going to recommend to you subsequently have a very high rewatch value,
Right.
unlike a lot of trash out there. Like, and there is trash. You don't have to tell me that anime has a bunch of trash in it, right?
Yeah.
Because the top anitubers right now actually have a podcast called Trash Taste, and it's a running joke in the community.
I'll be honest. If you give me a trash anime to watch, it'll be like the most saltiest episode of all time.
It'll be fun. No, it'll actually be fun
Yeah.
watching both of us just rant on how crap it is, and you being genuine.
Yeah. It's gonna be brutal.
I'm gonna be sitting there agreeing with you because it makes sense, but in my head, like, but no, she's my waifu. But no, she's pretty. But oh, she's cute. What do I do about this? Yeah, so I think we've dissected this enough for one night, and let's sum up what we think about this show. I guess I'll go first since you began as the newcomer to anime. So anyway, so to summarize what I think about the show is that the pros, the things that got going for it is that it's got a very killer first episode, and it's able to draw in audiences with a very interesting premise. It has a soundtrack, not just the opening and the ending, but the interludes, the music, the slightly jazzy bass lines of the generally the BGM that plays is also pretty nice. The presentation of the show is stellar, like we talked about. It does a good job of showing things instead of just delivering dialogue about it, exposition about it. It stays true to the concept where it doesn't unnecessarily, except for that one anime Harada episode, doesn't really deviate much from it. The gore, it leans into it. It leans into the gore. It says, okay, I'm just going to show you blood. I'm going to show you fucked up human beings, and just you're going to have to deal with it. And where I think this would have been better would be the side characters are fairly Mary McGuffins over here, where they just come in for one purpose and then they leave. The episodes in the middle where the plot kind of loses steam, the anime episode, for example, Ginty's entire existence in the show, and Ginty's entire existence in the show is questionable. The ending, like you said, while not really climactic from Chiyuki's perspective, if you look at it from Dekim's perspective, it kind of sort of makes sense. The show can be a little too cynical with its judgment style. And one thing, because I had to do this at the end of the podcast and I couldn't do it in the beginning, is like the mirror shatter moment. Doesn't every character look oddly horse-faced? The distance between their nose and their lips is huge.
I never thought about that, but now that you mention it,
it's messed up.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Dekim, yeah.
If you see where their lips are, they cannot anatomically exist as low as they do. They have no chins. Like their lips literally start at the bottom corner of their chins. It's mildly disturbing when you see it the first time, and then you can't unsee it.
Is this like a spin-off of BoJack Horseman?
I had it in my notes here. I just said the lines of lip lines are vaguely reminiscent of BoJack Horseman. Nice.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it is slightly like that, yeah.
Yeah. So you can tell me what you think about the show, then we can give our...
We can sentence the show either to reincarnation or to void.
Exactly. So, sure, tell me what you think.
So, I think for me, I think this is an interesting show. I like concepts, I like ideas, but concepts and ideas are only as good as their execution. I often say that the difference between a good story and a great story is flair, and this show has a lot of it. Mm-hmm. It really takes a interesting idea of after death's judgment and puts its own unique spin on it, and it really, I think it drags out as much juice out of it as possible. There is still some aspects of it that I would have liked to have seen explored in greater detail, but the ones that they do explore, they do very well. Mm-hmm. And they definitely take across, they tackle the spectrum of life quite well. Like Patil mentioned, they tackle the sweet stuff, they tackle the hard-hitting stuff, they tackle the middle stuff, they tackle suicide as a separate topic itself.
Yeah.
And they deal with all of them very gently, I think. They give them the due respect that, all these topics deserve. It genuinely feels like there was a lot of passion put into this show, And while I still hate anime, just gonna say that. I do like this show though. I will say that. I would recommend this show for sure. I think if you can get past episode 6, you should probably actually give the show a watch.
Alright.
I think in terms of score, I would give it like a 86. 8.6.
8.6. Okay, you're being relatively generous. You're rating this higher than anime fans themselves. Interesting.
The thing is, we're gonna watch like more animes and movies, and I'm gonna realize how badly I fucked up by giving it this higher score, this lower score.
Yeah, exactly. Your misconceptions, your score right now is very interesting to me because I don't know how that's gonna change based on the shows I'm gonna recommend to you in the future.
Yeah.
I just have this weird temptation of throwing in a trash show to just make you vent. But
it'll be like Okay, fine. Let give your score at least. you
Yeah.
know.
I consider this a pretty good show. It does not without its failings. So 8.4, 8.5, 8.4, yeah. 8.4 on 10.
Okay, so an average score of 8.5.
Yeah.
That's some quick maths there, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Didn't even need a calculator.
Oh my god. Using that degree of yours to great effect.
Yeah, I still haven't gotten it, by the way. but okay, so for our next episode, I'm gonna be giving Patil a movie to watch.
Yeah.
And I think the movie that we should do, Patil, is The Old Guard.
The Old Guard.
Have you heard of it?
You can assume the answer to that question is no, regardless. Yeah, it's gonna be no matter what
Okay.
you suggest.
So yeah, The Old Guard is a Netflix movie. It's pretty recent. I watched it. It's I think we're gonna have some interesting discussion about that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I'll take a watch of it. And
Okay.
Okay. So
You wanna wrap it up?
yeah. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you do end up liking this, do give us a like. And if you think there's something that we might have missed, or there's something that you don't agree with, you can leave a comment. As for iTunes and Spotify, we're still getting approvals for getting that up there, but it shall be there very soon. And for now, if you guys think we should be doing more shows like this, do subscribe and let us know. And for tonight, it's been Patil, your boy Patil, and your boy Smax.
Your boy Patil in the house. Jesus Christ.